like everyone else on the internet, I watched the Manosphere documentary on Netflix with Theroux. I had some time on the world's worst holiday, and got it done. If you haven't seen it yet, go and watch it before you listen to this podcast and then come back, because I'm just going to spoil it for you, and my thoughts will make some more sense. Now, unlike a lot of people, I wasn't particularly surprised by the rhetoric that I heard, right? I'm chronically online. I'm a single woman. I have heard a lot of this stuff firsthand. I have sat across from people on dates who have opened with some variation of, I'm an alpha male. And that's not a furry thing, by the way. I mean, as far as I know. Although honestly, at this point, I don't know, maybe it secretly is. And if you don't know what furries are, God, what a life you must lead. Don't look it up. You just keep living in that peace. Anyway, really got off topic quite fast there, didn't I? Of the many deeply disturbing things that this documentary put on screen, their views on women, their views on men, all of the layers of hypocrisy that are kind of spouted. The thing I actually want to talk about is something that I haven't seen many people discuss, which is business. And specifically the business models that are operating inside of the manosphere. And I suppose the question that I cannot get out of my head, which is, why? Why are people paying money to be around people who insult them, devalue them, and treat their vulnerability as almost like a revenue stream, right? And at what stage does a business move more into, your cult territory? And that's kind of what I want to get into today. My name is Amy Wallin. I'm the CEO of Link VA, the offshoring agency, and this is the Virtual CEO. So let's get into the manosphere. Deep breath. I want to start by talking about heroes for a second. There's this moment in the documentary where Louis is filming with one of these manosphere figures, and some fans approach them. And these fans are young men who are just gushing over him, right? They're calling this guy their hero. And one of them says something along the lines of, men are born without value. You have to earn it through money, through status, through dominance. And it disgusted me, but it kind of broke my heart a little bit, because I think everyone is born with value as a baseline, right? Every gender, every background, every tiny screaming human that arrives into this world arrives with inherent worth, right? I would actually argue that value is one of those things that you start with in abundance, and if you fuck up enough, you lose value, right? By making the world worse just because you are in it. And that means when you start choosing harm over good, over and over again until that's all you become. But no baby is born racist or sexist, right? No baby is born violent or hateful or with an agenda. They are all born pure and open and full of love, and then life gets involved. Life is hard for all of us in different ways, and it's what we do with that hardship that all of us get, how we face it, how we heal from it, what we build from the wreckage of it, that actually shapes who we become or who we are, right? That is where value is created. So the idea that a man arrives into this world as a worthless being who must be monetized and, dominate his way into being worth something in the eyes of some caricature content creator, I find that genuinely tragic. But it got me thinking about heroes and what being someone of value means, right? Specifically what the word heroes meant when I was a kid, right? Because I grew up on a lot of books and cartoons and stories where the hero was they were rarely the strongest or the smartest or the richest person in the room. What made them the hero was something simpler than that, right? They might have had some of these features, but that's not why they were heroes. They were brave, right? They stood up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. They fought against the ones who wanted to destroy and control and accumulate power at everyone else's expense, right? Batman was rich, right? But it was his fight for justice that made him a hero. And like Spider-Man, he had superhuman abilities and he was super clever. But it wasn't it was his protecting of innocence that made him a hero. Steve Irwin, let's pick a real person. He was really well known. He was likable, but it was his conservation and his passion for protection of animals that made him a hero. And here's the thing, all the villains in all of those stories, the ones that the hero existed to fight against, they wanted exactly what the Manosphere openly says it wants, which is power and money and control and dominance and the destruction of anyone who gets in their way. So we knew as kids that those were the bad guys, right? It was obvious. It was written into every story we were ever told. So I'm trying to understand, how do we get so turned around that those same values, the power, the dominance, the willingness to step on people to get ahead, became the thing that young men are now being taught to worship? How did the villain's agenda become the aspirational one, right? How did we forget that the basics of being good and doing good, right? Now, I just want to say, I'm not a religious person, but I genuinely, stubbornly believe that our job as human beings is to leave this place, this world, a little bit better than we found it, right? That the measure of a life is not what you accumulate in that lifetime, but what you contributed, right? And that, being the richest man in the graveyard, in fact, is not the win. And maybe that makes me hopelessly optimistic. Honestly, I don't know how I have any optimism left, but I do. And I think that probably you do too, or you wouldn't still be listening to this. Unless I got you on a 60-second grab. Sorry. Anyway, so let's talk about the actual business model. How does one sell the concept of villainy? Because on the surface, I mean literally just on the surface, it is not actually that different from how a lot of legitimate coaching businesses operate, right? You create free content to build an audience. That audience starts to trust you. You sell that audience something. That's just marketing, right? That's how Tony Robbins does it. That's honestly how I do it. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that model of attracting people in, right? But what these Manosphere guys have done is taken every single step of that process and twisted it into something that is designed to cause harm. So let's go through it, right? First step to creating a villain is you need an origin story. So what the Manosphere does is it will manufacture hurt, right? It will manufacture injustice. It will manufacture people that you have to hate, people that have supposedly taken something away from you. And in this case of the Manosphere, at least, it's normally women that they vilify, right? They have convinced a lot of these men that by women becoming successful and independent, it has taken something from them. They aren't two separate things, right? Women doing well automatically means that men can't do well. And the success of one does not have to be at the expense of another, right? They've just made it seem that way because I don't even know. They just don't know any other way of being. So they've built this origin story for their followers. Their free content, the stuff that's designed to attract people, isn't inspirational or educational. It's designed to terrify men into thinking that they are worthless and to convince them that women are objects put on this earth for their convenience or to aid in their success. And that's the thing that gets clicks, right? Fear, contempt, every single time. And the funnel isn't built on aspiration, right? It's built on shame. So by the time a young man has consumed enough of this content, he is so convinced that he is fundamentally broken and unlovable that paying someone to fix him literally feels like the only option. It is, it's like a sales funnel that's made of razors, right? Now, back to the documentary. A completely disgusting part of the documentary was hearing that most of the men on there don't actually believe the stuff they're saying, right? They're just hurting both men and women for clout and for profit. But again, because all they respect is money, it's easy for them to justify their own actions, right? Now, this is not just being misguided, right? This is not a man who got lost somewhere along the way. This is someone who made a very clear and very conscious decision that other people's well-being is worth less than his bank balance, right? That is straight up villain behavior. And I keep thinking about how these same men are the ones who grew up watching the same cartoons that we all watched or read the same books that we all read, right? These are people who wanted to be firefighters and police officers when they were, young boys, who had that moment when they were a kid where they decided that They want to be the person that saves people, that cares for people, right? And I don't understand how you go from being that kid, that clear-eyed little kid who wanted to be the hero, to being the person who will publicly shame vulnerable men and tell women that they are animals and sleep fine at night because the numbers in their bank account are big enough. I don't understand how that happens, right? Now, let's say that money is your main objective. And by the way, totally fine. If money is your main objective, you can want to make a lot of money, and that doesn't inherently make you a bad person. I feel like what makes you a bad person is if your business model requires you to hurt people in order to make money. Take Tony Robbins, right? He is not a small man in any sense of the word. He is wealthy. He is like physically large. He's absolutely jacked. He has the cars and the houses and the empire. And by the way, the respect of an enormous number of people, including a lot of men who look up to him as proof that, you can build something genuinely extraordinary from nothing, right? So in essence, he has everything that these Manosphere guys are promising to sell you. But Tony Robbins is kind. He is visibly, genuinely, disgustingly kind. He funds a lot of charities. He shows up for people who have nothing to offer him in return, right? He has sat with people in the worst moments of their lives and has given them his full attention and his genuine care and asked for nothing back, right? His whole framework, every course, every book, every, screaming arena that he has sold is built on the belief that you are capable of more. Not that you are broken, not that you are worthless, not that you need to dominate and shame and destroy to earn your place, right? Just that you have more in you than you think. And then he teaches you how to find it, right? You would not be catching Tony Robbins telling a room full of young men that they were born without value. You would not catch him talking about women like they are a commodity that you acquire. Right? He's a gentleman, and not the Manosphere version where being a man apparently means that you tolerate women as long as they stay in their lane. The outcome of these Manosphere guys that they're selling is the money, the confidence, the respect, the relationships. And Tony Robbins is proof that you can have all of it, every single bit of it, without the shame, without the cruelty, without having to, completely hollow yourself out and fill the space with contempt for other people. So while I was sitting there thinking about this and how we teach people to get onto just a more positive path, it occurred to me that this could simply be solved by teaching people critical thinking, right? People like these Manosphere guys exist everywhere. It's this gender above the other, right? It's this race above the other. It's this class above the other. There is always someone somewhere teaching you that one kind of person is inherently worth more than another based on luck and coincidence of being born where you are or how you are, right? So critical thinking is the weapon that we can give to people who will experience a lifetime of charlatans, right, in business or otherwise. And because we live in, a society that we do, you're going to see a lot of them. So what is critical thinking? Let's start there. Critical thinking is the ability to infer data from your own observations, right? And the reason I say your own observations and not facts is because I truly don't think that you should trust facts from many sources, right? Facts can be cherry-picked. Data can be skewed. People can be biased, all in the name of persuading you to believe whatever their hypothesis is, right? To the point where opinions have slowly been rebranded into facts. So you need to just question everything that you're told, no matter who it's by, even if it's someone that you respect and trust, right? If someone said to me, let's say men were hunters and women were gatherers, that's the fact or the opinion or whatever. Someone saying that to me doesn't automatically make it a fact. Just because many people say it and many people repeat it doesn't make it a fact, right? No one exists with first-hand knowledge because that was a billion years ago. And even all the evidence from archaeologists don't support that, right? Yet that fact is used as a basis for so many arguments, which to me is already foolish because plenty of things existed in history that was stupid. And just because that's how it was done, if it was, doesn't mean that's how it should be done. So Yeah, start by questioning your beliefs. Let's take the belief that women were meant to be subservient to men, that belief that a lot of them touted. Why? Right? Because back in caveman days, A, probably not true, and B, doesn't fucking matter. Just because it was done that way doesn't make it better. Why would that mean that women are subservient, right? Because like women are naturally weaker? Sure, physically, we are naturally weaker. And I think we have enough evidence and observation to agree with that. I'm not contesting that. But why would that matter? Right? Why would that make someone less worthy of rights when there is a lot of value that you can add to the world that doesn't rely on having physical strength? Or like the one I hear all the time, which is, women only want a man who is 6'5", makes six figures and has a six pack. Right? But when you look around, to the women in your family or in your life or at the fucking shopping center, how many of them are with or love a man who has none of those things? Right? 99% of them, I'm sure. So that fact cannot be true, right? There must be some other thing that they value. And if you are someone who just sequesters yourself with limited data and limited opinions and limited observation, all you'll ever get is a limited view. And that's kind of the basis of critical thinking, right? Don't rely on stories or opinions. Ask questions. Look for yourself at real people. Talk to real people, different people, not just people who already support or who support what you already believe, right? And when you do that, you become very hard to take advantage of. Anyway, break from our usual tradition, but I think it's an important message nonetheless. So thank you for listening this far. Go teach or learn critical thinking. Go question your beliefs that hurt others. And I must apologize for being completely out of breath this week. I'm recovering from dengue fever, and I do not recommend you get it. It sucks. But whatever. There we are. Thanks for listening.